kind of get another, like just.
Maybe I'll keep it here.
I want you to get started. I'll let you do your thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run back over and I'll probably come back. We have a command staff coming up at 15:30. Be over there, so I'll be back.
Yeah. Awesome. Can those guys hear me?
Yeah, hey, Shane or somebody, can you guys give me a test? Make sure you can hear us okay?
Yes, sir. All good.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Great.
Hey, if you guys, I don't know, yeah, if y'all have questions, y'all probably just have to come up. We do
Yeah,
have you up on the screen so we can sort of see who's up, but.
Good.
All right. Cool.
All right.
Let's go. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Hey, for you guys on virtual, yeah, just pipe up. We got a pretty small crowd, so you can just interrupt me and ask a question, whether it be interactive. So just real quick, I'm Paul McElroy, retired Navy captain. Don't hold that against me. I graduated from the Naval Academy in '85. Actually went to NC State for a year before that. My sister went here. My dad was an Army artillery officer. Got out as he was ROTC Vanderbilt. Got out after a couple of years. So anyway, the important thing here is making sure you guys understand your finances and you can understand your soldiers' finances, because you'll have a lot of financial issues. In the Navy, we used to say 90% of your problems are with 10% of your people. And I'm sure it's the same way in the Army. And I'd say 80% of those problems are probably financially related. You know, they're E3 buying a Ford F-150 for $60,000, something you probably couldn't afford as a second lieutenant. So you'll run into those things. I also had a family E2, I think, and he had 4 or 5 kids. So they were on food stamps, all those things. We ended up getting them housing on base to help, but you know, you have to go through budget, things like that. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Let's see if this works. I know he made it work.
Did you turn the remote off?
I'll just. Anybody know?
Come take a look. Figure this out.
He had it working. So definitely on. Maybe I just got to point.
He's a portable race guy, so
I think this is it. So. Sorry about that. I'll just keep talking for a little bit.
no, Zoom's still on. They're still on Zoom.
Nice.
So also we're going to talk about, you know, setting goals. That'll be one of the first slides, because if you, just like in the military.
Manual.
Okay, how's manual?
Just like move your cursor over and then click the slide. It should hopefully do what it's supposed to do.
I don't see the slide. Oh, here it is.
There.
Maybe.
Yeah, Diego, can you still hear us?
Okay. You guys hear us?
Yeah, we're all good.
Okay, good. All right. This is just a slide to say, I'm not really here to talk about any products or services or companies. So if you guys want to talk about that, it's going to have to be a separate time. This is what we're going to go over. So financial goals, effective budgeting, credit, insurance, and then I think most importantly, investments. Okay, financial goals. What kind of financial goals you guys have? Just give me one example.
Being able to afford a house someday.
Okay, that might be midterm, long term. So, is it a SMART goal? Do you know what a SMART goal is? specific, measurable, achievable. So I think it meets all those and time bound. So I think the really important thing is to have that goal and to revisit it every once in a while, because if you're not doing that, I mean, it's just like in the military, you have a goal, you're going to achieve some, or you're going to accomplish a mission. You have to kind of figure out what you're going to do to get there. And then you're going to have to reevaluate because things change, right? Your money might change, your income might change, things like that. And that's what we mean by sticky goals, kind of make it stick by revisiting it, have an accountability partner, things like that. What other goals? Like I've heard engagement rings, I've heard cars are a big one, those sorts of things. You guys have cars?
Yeah, I have a car with like a new one that 260,000 miles right now.
Oh, wow.
Pretty good.
No, not a new.
Well, I want another car for when this eventually breaks down.
Okay.
Enough money. Yeah.
Good. Well, one of these flyers, I think it's your first PCS that I handed out. And I think it also has it on, I think your instructor sent it out online for you guys on Zoom. If you look on the back, thought I saw, let me see, thought I saw a car somewhere. Protect and insure, auto insurance, transportation. Yeah, the top thing, transportation. So limit total transportation needs to 15% of your gross income. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Okay, so effective budgeting. So this, I don't think the guys online have this, but I just handed it out. This is, completely manual. There's other ways to do it. You can do it. You can have programs, apps, all those sorts of things. Let me give you. Thanks. At the end, remind me, I'll give you a Dunkin' Donut or Starbucks gift card.
Appreciate it.
I've used Quicken. Sure, there's other things that you could use, but I like this just to start out with because it's got percentages of targets and goals of things you should budget for. I gave this to my son when he got out of college. He was going to get his first job, filled out his gross income, he knew what his salary is going to be, and this really opened his eyes because it doesn't go as far as you think it's going to go. 16. Now you guys are fortunate because is your rent covered? If you get an apartment, if you have BAH, there you go, BAH. So tax deductible, housing allowance that civilians don't get, right? So that's really a nice option. So you can almost fill in your BAH here where it says 16% of your income. So that helps. And then use the rest for taxes, car expenses, insurance, credit card debt. Hopefully you don't have that, all these sorts of things. So it's just a good guideline to start off with. And this is just an example of all those things you spend your money on, your salary on. Who knows how much you're going to get first paycheck out of the Army?
Depends if they messed up our pay and how many months after.
Well,
Get a
your first paycheck's going to be less than 2 years as an 01.
So you're like $3,100, something like that.
Yeah, it's about, I looked it up. I think the last time I looked at it was 34. I'm sure it's gone up because of inflation. 34.77. I think I might have included BAS with that, which is subsistence allowance. But and then BAH is about 1,000, depending on where you live, right? So anyway, I would recommend that you kind of do this right before you graduate, figure out where it's going to go. And then after the first month, see where you stand. I guarantee you probably spent too much. Right. And then you're going to have to revisit it. Okay, I spent too much on going out at night, at restaurants, taking my boyfriend, girlfriend out, whatever. And then readjust it and make sure you take out 10-15% for retirement, for savings, emergency fund. We'll talk about all those sorts of things. Any questions? Okay. Pretty basic. I know this first part is really basic, so just bear with me. And this is really what I handed out to you. So you've kind of already seen that. There's apps online that you can use. Your bank probably has budgeting, automatic budgeting and things like that. Okay, how many of y'all have credit cards? All of them. So here's just a couple things to go over, to think about, and I'll tell you a quick story as well. But we're gonna go over credit score here, credit reports. Anybody know what these companies are? TransUnion, Equifax.
The main credit agency.
Correct, and credit agency. So that's important because you don't just get one credit score, you get one from each one of these companies, right? And then FICO score is kind of the gold standard, I guess, or kind of takes it all into account. And you want to make sure you're going to start off, you're going to have, depends on how you get your credit, but I'll show you on the next, I think it's 2 slides from now, how your credit score comes about, but you want to definitely want over 700. 780 to get what? What's it going to give you? What's your credit score going to do for you?
Be able to get loans at a lower rate.
Correct. So 780 and above, I think gives you the lowest rates. 720, probably, that's probably where you're going to start, right? Probably give you maybe 6% instead of 5% on a car loan, things of that nature. Credit tips. So cosign, bad idea. You guys know what a cosign, a loan is? Buddy, family member comes up to you, hey, will you, I don't have a good credit score, can you co-sign for me so I can get a loan? The problem, it's a bad idea because it could affect your credit score if your friend defaults or your family member defaults. I had a sailor who worked for me who her mother was drug dependent. She gave her a credit card, charged it all up. She couldn't pay it off, and her credit score plummeted, which affected her top secret clearance. Right, so she couldn't get the orders that she wanted to Scotland because she couldn't have a top secret clearance anymore because she was in default or bankruptcy. Right, so it can affect your Army career as well. And then you all already have credit cards, so I assume you have credit, right? And then review your report quarterly, annualcreditreport.com. Anybody ever done that? So this is free once a year, all right? Don't ever pay for it. But from each credit agency, you can get a report. You could do it right now, probably do it on your phone, and it would show you several things. One, have you ever been late on a payment? And if you don't think you have, and it says you have, you can contest that. So maybe you get wiped off. That would increase your credit score. What else might it show you? What do you think?
Utilization rate.
Yeah, I mean, it'll have every single account you've ever, every credit card, every loan you've ever made. One other thing it might do, if somebody has got established credit in your name, it would show up there. And then you could identify that and get it wiped off. So that's what do you call it? Identity theft. Like those. Okay, so this is your factors for the credit score. You'll notice 65% of your credit score, do you pay your bills on time, and how much do you owe? So if you have $1,000 limit on your credit card and you've already spent $900 and you're just paying the minimum, that's going to affect it negatively 30%. So you want to pay it off every month if you can, or pay down as much as you can. And then the rest is things like how long have you had credit? That's why you can't start off at the top because you haven't had credit that long. Like I've had credit for 40 years. And then new credit, where you get credit cards, pay off credit cards, things like that. And then type of credit used. So auto loans, those sorts of things. Questions on credit? My daughter, she was getting married. She had just I got her a credit card probably 6 months before she got married. She used it 3 or 4 times, paid it off every time, and she already had like a 730 credit score. So pretty easy to establish student credit as long as you're paying everything off. Let me tell you. Let's see, have you got the credit card? That's next. I'll tell you what. So debt to income ratio. Make sure you keep your debt to income ratio at 35% or less. All right, that includes your car, credit cards, all that sort of stuff, because you need enough money to budget for everything else. You guys know what the Servicemen Civil Relief Act is? Okay, this is important for you. Because right now you're not considered in the Army, right? But once you're on active duty and you're commissioned, are all you going active duty or some of you going reserves? All active duty. Doesn't matter. Once you go on active duty, whether it's reserves or not, if you had credit beforehand, then the bank has to keep that credit at 6%. Okay, so or the interest rate is 6%. So and it could include student loans, right? Not in every case, but in a lot of cases, I've heard cadets and midshipmen come up to me and say that they were able to get their student loan down to 6% as well. Some banks will even go lower than that. But the key is you got to call them. They're not just going to do it on their own. Call them, hey, second lieutenant so-and-so just commissioned, had this credit, had this car loan at 8%. I want to drop it to 6%. Right. So that's important. The other benefit would be, and I've used this over and over in my career, if you're renting a house, you're renting an apartment, you get orders, it allows you to break the lease in 30 days notice. But you have to have your orders. But I've used that throughout my whole career. Never had a problem. So it did have a problem one time because it didn't have orders. You have to have orders, right? And they have to be somewhere else. You can't just be in the same area. So eliminating debt. If you do have credit debt, then make sure you're paying off your highest interest rates first. That makes sense. And build a small cash cushion and stop using a credit card, or use your credit card as a debit card. Just pay it off. So before we go through this, let me tell you about my credit story. I had a credit card, I think it was an 04, buying furniture for $3,000. Hadn't had this class, so didn't know to build an emergency fund for those sorts of things. Didn't have a great budget at the time. So you ever heard of the 0% interest credit cards for like 0% interest for 2 years? Right? So it sounded enticing, and it was, and I read all the fine print, and it said, hey, if you have 0% interest for 2 years, but if you don't pay it on time, then we're going to jack it up to 21%, and we're going to make you pay all the interest from the beginning. So I knew that going in, but I had figured it out. I was going to pay, I think, $167 a month for 2 years. It was going to equal this. It was coming right out of my pay. And I was monitoring the bills, still 0%, was paying them on time. Got my last bill, I owed $1.50, but it was after the 2 years. So they made me pay 21% interest for 2 years because I owed $1.50. Wow. Right. So just be careful. Now I should have paid off way ahead of time, But if you're doing something like that, and trying to gain a system, make sure you're getting smart about it. Pay it off early. And the other thing, you guys are deployed. You don't always have time, to monitor your bills every month, things like that. So now I did call them, complain. They said, okay, Mr. McElroy, if you pay $500 today, we'll call it even. So I paid $500 instead of $700. Still a rip off. If you do have something like what I was just talking about, you bought a TV or a monitor here for $2,500, credit card, 18% interest. If you just pay the minimum, which any bank would love for you to do, it'd be 2% of the balance or $15 a month in this case, it would take you 27 years to pay off. And the bank would earn $6,000 in interest. But if you just pay $100 a month more, $200 a month more, you can cut that in half and a quarter. it only pays $650 in interest. And cut it down 32 months, just for $100 extra. So always pay a little more than the minimum. The minimum is a racket. The bank is trying to earn money off your back, so. Okay, insurance. I was just talking to retired Master Chief over here at the cadets, and he was telling me, make sure you talk to him about life insurance. But you get SGLI. You guys know what SGLI is? Okay, that's good. So auto insurance rate, you're talking about auto insurance is very high here.
I don't know.
You don't have anything to relate it to. So where you live, location, I would assume they're lower here because it's kind of rural. But if you lived in Atlanta, New York, it's going to be higher because there's a lot of wrecks, there's a lot of insurance fraud, all those sorts of things. So location matters. Type of vehicle, you know, if you're driving a brand new Ford F-150 or Corvette, it's going to be more than Toyota Corolla. Makes sense. Your driving record obviously has is a factor. Policy limits, you know, how much you're covered for, and you want to make sure you're covered enough in case you're sued or something like that. And then deductibles. You guys know what deductibles are. You pay, you know, you get a wreck, it's your fault. Pay first $500. Insurance company pays the rest. But if you pay $1,000 deductible, your insurance would be less. So if you had an emergency fund of $1,000, then you theoretically could take advantage of that and pay less for insurance. And then this is credit score. So it isn't always a factor, but in some states it is. Okay, renter's insurance. Anybody have renter's insurance? No. Okay, when you get out, you get your apartment, probably going to require you to get renter's insurance for liability in case you leave the stove on and it burns all the other apartments down, or leave the water on and it soaks all the other apartments. So they want to make sure you're covered for liability reasons. But it's also a good idea if you can get insurance that's military related. There's several out there covers your military gear, right? So I know a coworker of mine who was in the Army over in Afghanistan, that his vehicle got hit by an IED. He woke up in Lunchen, Germany, which is the hospital, and realized his computer was gone, his uniforms were gone, all those things were gone. And somebody just happened to mention, hey, do you have insurance, personal property insurance? He said, yeah. He said, we'll call them, see if they cover all that. And they did. So, but you got to make sure it's covered. You know, if you get it from some civilian insurance company that doesn't know what the military is, probably not going to happen. So any questions on this? It's really cheap. It's relatively cheap. So it's kind of a no-brainer to get property insurance. Okay. Life insurance. So this just went up March 1st. Did you guys know that? Do you have SGLI?
I think we get it as soon as we contract
Okay, I think we do.
a certain amount.
So this is, I would recommend you take it. This is automatic unless you say, I don't want it. And you have to kind of go in there and say, sign for it, say, I don't want it. It's only $31 a month. It's actually before taxes, so you don't really pay taxes on it. And it's up to $500,000. So if you're single, is that a bit much? Maybe. But if you're married, definitely not. If you have a house, definitely not. You know, you have a lot of stuff, car, that's somebody's going to have to pay off, right? If you haven't paid it off yet. So you don't want your family doing that. That's what life insurance is. So it's a good idea. Make sure that you and your soldiers have the proper beneficiaries signed up. So that's what we, in the Navy, we call it page 2. I don't know what you call it in the Army, but we used to have to verify that every year. And I've seen horror stories. I've witnessed this. One sailor died in a car wreck, and his ex-wife on the insurance, not his new one. Right? Yeah. So life, whenever they call it a life change. What do they call it? Life changing or a life change could be a new job, could be promotion, anything like that. You want to reevaluate your life insurance, get married, have kids, those sorts of things. Okay, any questions about life insurance? Now, when you get a spouse, your spouse is covered to $100,000 and kids, $500,000 might not cut it. You know, if you pass away, you still have a mortgage on your house, you got a car, your kids have to go to college, your wife or husband doesn't have a job, right? You can see where you might need a lot more. You can't, then you'd have to go outside the government, but this is called term insurance. Anybody know what the difference in permanent term insurance? So term insurance is SGLI. It's set for as long as you're in the Army. I've got term insurance for the next 10 years for my life, you know, until I reach Social Security age and all that kind of stuff, and pension age. And so my wife is taking care of it. Permanent, but it stops at a certain age 70 for me. Permanent insurance is what we call whole life, right? So you could get that now pretty cheap. And you know, you pay into it for 30 years, right? And you could borrow against it. You could use it for certain other things. And at some point it's worth, you know, whatever it says, let's say it's $100,000, right? And so you're covered for $100,000, but if you die before that, you get the $100,000. Crunch the numbers and be careful when you're looking at that. Term insurance is always cheaper. Permanent insurance, it may fit you in some situations where you don't want to invest money, you want them to do it. That's kind of what it is, right? It's they're taking care of your investment, because you could probably do better, you know, put in your TSP, right? Because you get more interest. Now, this year, where the way the stock market's going, probably not, but 10 years down the line, it's gonna probably go. Okay, anybody ever been a victim of identity theft? Like credit card was stolen?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody gets that.
PT, all your credit cards.
It's just important to, you know, make sure you're careful about, everybody knows what phishing is, right?
Mm.
Don't click on everything you see on emails, Wi-Fi traps, postal theft, social security numbers, passwords, keep them all safe. I worked for an admiral in my last job. His wife went out to the mailbox and got their tax return for, you know, big check, $5,000. They didn't file their taxes. So somebody else stole his social security number, filed his taxes. And I guess they were going to intercept the mailbox before the wife did. And luckily she got there first, but he had to go through this whole rigmarole to reestablish his identity. And that's what identitytheft.gov is for. It helps you do that. Reestablish your identity. You have to go through this whole checklist. So I don't know if that's on the notes I gave you or not, but you can also do what's called, have you ever heard of credit freeze? So credit freeze, my dad does this. It didn't cost him any money. I thought it cost like $1 a month. He said it didn't cost anything. And basically you work with those credit agencies. You say, I want to put my credit on freeze. And so in order for, say you're going to buy a car, you would have to give the car dealer a PIN number to access your credit, right? But you've actively given him that, you know, he's activating it. Not anybody can go in and look at your credit. Right? So good thing to do. It becomes a little onerous when, you know, you just want to buy some furniture and get a credit card, and it's not automatic because you have to get a PIN code, but it keeps your credit safe. Active duty alert, if you're on deployment, you can tell it's basically the same thing as a credit card. So, hey, I'm going on deployment. I want to be on an active duty alert. I know that's free. This may cost you. Okay, I think this is the most important part, and we're well ahead of schedule, so it's good. We get time for any questions you might have. So it's important to have a regular, automatic, systematic, and goal-oriented savings plan. I recommend you know, if you can't start it now, your first paycheck, 10 to 15%, just you won't miss it. If it comes right off your paycheck. You have a plan. So an emergency fund, obviously emergency fund is for emergencies, but why is an emergency fund really important? What does it help you do? What do you think?
Not go into extreme debt.
Save
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, but there's no way you can, that budget I gave you, there's no way you can follow a budget if you don't have an emergency fund, because all these things are gonna happen. Car maintenance that costs $1,000. A funeral or a wedding that you have to go to that you didn't plan for, and it's not in your budget, a vacation, insurance deductibles, you have a car wreck, all these things are what emergency funds are for. So we recommend that you start at least $1,000 to take care of those kind of emergencies, and then slowly build it up. And the recommendation by financial planners is 3 to 6 months of expenses. And I think that's more for if you're going to lose your job, right? You have a little protection in the Army, but still, even in the Army, you can get kicked out of the Army. It might take a while, but it happens. You could get injured and get out of the Army. That might take a while too, but you really want to, it might take you a long time to find a job too, right? So always good to have more money in savings, and we'll talk about the types of savings next. And this is the real benefit of starting early. So I didn't do this. I'm kind of the second phase that we're going to see, but you have an opportunity to start at age 23. So actually, I'm the first phase. I'm the starting at 32, start saving. You know, I did it, $500 a month. When I retired in about 4 years, $713,000. Pretty good, right? Sounds pretty good. But if you started at 22 or 23, same amount of money, 1.5 million. Why is that? I mean, you put in, think about it, just $60,000 extra, right? 500 a month for 10 years, and it grew to 1.5 million. Why is that?
Compound interest.
That's right, compound interest. So, I'm gonna draw on here real quick. I don't know if everybody can see me, but this is a simple rule. It's called the rule of 72. Anybody heard of it? All right, 72 divided by your interest rate. Let's say it's 10%, 7.2. So in this scenario, 10% interest every 7.2 years, whatever you have invested doubles. So if it's 8%, what's that? 10 years? No. It's like 10 years or something, or 9 years. Every 9 years at 8%, your investment doubles. So if you think about it, you can also use this for inflation. So inflation at, what is it now? 8%. So every 9 years, your purchasing power is cut in half at 9% inflation. So that's why it's important to invest as well. If you just keep money under the mattress, you're losing money, right? Okay, and then if you think about this person, they started early enough to, the first 7 or 8 years, their money doubled again. And this guy took a lot longer. He didn't have that chance to double his investment. Right. Okay, so lower risk savings would be something you would use for an emergency fund, right? Because you have to take it out at a moment's notice. If you look at the stock exchange or the stock market for the last 100 years, you might have heard about this before. It's averaged over 10% per year on average over the last 100 years, including the Great Depression. And that's even though it has big dips like it is now, like it did in the Great Recession, like it did in the Great Depression, overall it's grown 10% per year. So if you're looking at a time horizon of over 10 to 15 years, it's gonna be pretty safe if you go into the stock market and higher risk investments. But if you want to take anything out less than 10 years, you probably want to keep it lower risk saving. Now, I don't, any of you guys, business majors or, yep, so finance, you get finance. So what, this is doing pretty bad right now, right? Saving bonds, usually this is low risk. So we're kind of in an anomaly right now. But these are the types of things that are normally low risk, but even in a recession or in a downturn, everything can go down. There's no guarantees. But high risk investments over the long term is pretty safe. Again, no guarantees, but it goes down and up and down and up, but overall it's trending up. So stocks, bonds, real estate. Anybody thinking about buying a house? Probably not a great idea. What we say, and I know I have a lot of friends that did it, but it's really like, it's like rolling dice because this market goes up and down. We generally say, if you're not going to live in it for 5 years, then don't buy it, right? Generally, we say. Now, you could rent it out after you PCS your first time. And I have a lot of friends that have done. I have one friend that had like 5 properties all over the country because every time you PCS, you just rent it out. That's pretty time consuming and it's stressful too. Trust me, I did it once. And you know, you have to get somebody to manage your property and you don't have enough money to cover everything. So just things to consider. Okay, anybody tell me what a mutual fund is? All right. So pretty much listed, but mutual funds are they're professionally managed. That's one key. They're generally diversified. And when I say diversified, it can be, you can have a mutual fund for almost anything. You can have it for oil, you can have it for gold, you can have it for the stock market, but you want to diversify it into different, let's say it's oil, maybe 100 different oil companies. That's diversification. Because if one oil company goes under, then the whole thing doesn't crash and you don't lose all your money. Just like the banks that just, you know, SVP, I think, that just tanked. So if you had all your money in SVP, that's bad. But if you diversify in different banks, then you're all safe. It lowers the money that you have to pay to invest. And you want to be aware of the expenses. The reason I'm telling you about this is that's what thrift savings plan is. It's mutual. That's what you're going to have access to. So this is why it's important to systematically invest. So when the stock market's up, you're buying less shares. And when it drops, you're buying more shares because it costs less, right? So if you're doing it every month and you're not worried about it because you're on deployment, you're working hard, you don't have to think about it. You're averaging as the stock market continues to go up over decades, right? You're not going to generally get any money if you're just doing it for a year because of these undulations, but over decades, it's going to trend up. Okay, thrift savings plan. You guys know what that is? Right. So it's pretty cool. You can do it on MyPay. You can kind of move your money around, pick your investments. But the thrift savings plan was not really available for me for my first 20 years in the Navy. The last 10 years it was, but I didn't have an option for matching funds like you guys did. But the good thing about the thrift savings plan, it's like a 401k in that you can put up to $22,500 a year in there. If you had an IRA, which is anybody can do, you could do that right now, put money in an IRA, but you can only put $6,500 a month. But once you're getting paid on active duty, thrift savings plan, you put that much in. And you know, it sounds like a lot now, but as you get older and make more money, and you're a colonel or a lieutenant colonel or a major, $22,500 is not a stretch. Any questions on it? Okay. Can somebody tell me the difference in a traditional or Roth IRA? Yeah.
Roth is tax free, like after It's tax when you put it in, and then at the backside it's tax free.
The other's the opposite, right? Right. So what do you think you should do as a second lieutenant? Which one would you pick? Why?
You're better off just paying up front and you still have money when you're single and when you got a lot of expenses, so you're gonna just pay those taxes off up front and then not deal with it later on.
Right. So all that's true, but also you're in a lower tax bracket, right? So where the traditional might be advantageous, if you're a 05, you're making more money, 06, and you're in that higher tax bracket, it'll reduce your tax bracket, right? But like you said, then you got to pay taxes at the end, which really sucks because my dad, he's 85 now. They make him take his taxes out after you're age 72. I think it's older now, maybe 74. But after age 72, if you have a traditional IRA, they make you take money out of it so you'll pay the taxes because they don't want you to just keep it, okay, and then will it to your kids. So, but with a Roth IRA, you don't have to do that. Keep it till you're 90. Give it to your kids. Yeah.
It might have been what you were just talking about. Don't they? Is that the RMD?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so
It requires minimum distribution.
is that just traditional IRA or is it
It's just traditional.
Okay.
I mean, technically, in a 401k, a Roth, they might make you take a Roth out, but you could just, it's kind of a way to get around it. You should just move it from 401k to a Roth account. And then you keep it there forever. Now, the other rule about the Roth IRAs is you have to have them for 5 years before you can take them out, right? Or they'll penalize you.
Two questions about
Yep.
this. So with the Roth, you're able to put it in while on deployment, correct? And not get taxed at the beginning and not get taxed at the end, right?
If you're in a hazardous duty pay
Okay,
where you're not being taxed, has to be in, say, Afghanistan.
okay,
Or I think the Persian Gulf or the Navy used to be, like Bahrain used to be in there. I don't know if it is anymore, but definitely if you're in Iraq.
so as long as you're getting that hazardous duty pay, you
Correct.
can
If
do
you're
that.
getting hazardous duty pay, you're getting, you're not paying taxes and you can double dip, like you're talking.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a great one. Okay. Saving investment. So if you're interested in the TSP, you go to www.tsp.gov. It tells you what each of these funds are. Anybody ever looked at these? Yeah. So like short-term savings, G, you're automatically in L, which is lifetime. I think. So it basically takes, when you first come out, you can be aggressive, so it invests aggressively, and as you're closer to retirement, it's lesser. That's what that, so you don't have to think about it. But if you want to do it yourself, you can be diverse and put them in all. Do it yourself. When you're young, I put, if you're not taking out to your 65, I put most of it in stocks. I think. So the blended retirement system, you get up to 5% contribution now. So does anybody know how that works? Do you guys get training on that?
It's
that.
after 2 years.
We do this
After
after
2
two years, they start matching.
Is that after 2 years of service or after 2 years you've had a TSP?
So after 30 days, you get this 1% contribution. I think that's for you. I did the calculations. It's $34, right? Not much. But like you said, after 2 years, you're probably a first lieutenant. You put in 5%, they're going to match 5%. You put in 2%, they're going to give you 2%, plus the 1% you got, which is 5%. So what you want to do is budget from the get-go. I would put in at least 5%, put in 10% if you can, and then you're going to get a 5% match. You're not going to get a 10% match, you get a 5%. That makes sense. Okay. But another interesting thing is at 5% as a first lieutenant, almost done.
Oh, no, hey, just one, I'm worried right there, so,
Okay.
whenever y'all done, just wave in the door, whatever, I can go.
All right, great.
Take your time.
Yep. This is about $250. So you need 250 in matching, it's 500 a month. Remember in that first slide when we were talking about 500 a month saving and getting 1.5 million? So not too bad. Now, what do you do? Let's make sure I covered everything on here. You were talking about deployment opportunity? Yeah, so another thing, if you do go on deployment, look at a thing called the safe. It's the can't remember what it's called. I'll think of it in a second. It's this savings plan that was started in the Vietnam War. It guarantees you 10% on an investment. Have you heard about it? You can go to DFAS and say deployment, and it'll come up. And I'll look it up at the end and see what it's called. But it's like I did it once. You have to be in a hazardous duty pay environment, and then you can put in up to a certain amount of money. You can't put in everything, but up to like $10,000, and it'll guarantee you 10% interest for the time of your deployment. So can't go wrong there. Oh, mutual fund. This is a brand new. Just looked this up last night. It's a brand new benefit for the TSP, where if you have $40,000 in your TSP or more, then 25% of your investments you can put in mutual funds outside of TSP. So have you guys heard about that? So that's pretty good. Now, there are fees associated with it, so I kind of evaluate that. The good thing about TSP is low cost, right? So if you want to go off to these other mutual funds, just kind of make sure they better be doing really, really well because you're going to pay. Okay, no question on this, right? Okay, so what do you do if you get out of the military? Once you get out, let's say it's before retirement. You can leave your money in the TSP. You get out after 5 years, leave your money in the TSP. It just continues to grow. Can you add to it? No, because you're not getting paid by the Army. But if you like it, it's low cost. It continues to grow. Keep it in there. But you can also withdraw it. Now, you can't, if you just withdraw it and put in your checking account, you're going to pay for it because they're going to fine you. IRS is going to fine you for taking it out before retirement. Right? And they're also going to make you pay your taxes. So don't do that. Call a broker and roll it over into an IRA or some other retirement plan. The broker can do it. If you try to do it, you're going to mess it up. You're going to owe taxes. Get a broker to do it. They'll do it. I think I had it done once. It didn't cost me anything. It might be a small fee, but you can roll it over. No consequences, no charges, no tax consequences. But it's in another retirement plan, so it's going to show it. Right. So those are kind of your options. Now, one other thing you can do, if you have a Roth, you can always take out what you put into it. Right. But you can't take out that interest unless you're at retirement age, which is 59.5.
Would there be any benefit to leaving it in versus rolling it over into like a Roth, like your own personal Roth IRA?
The only benefit I can think of is you would have more options because TSP only has like 5 options. Right? But if you put it in Fidelity or Schwab or something like that, I'm not advocating any companies, but they just have maybe hundreds of funds. So that might be a better option. Plus, you could probably talk to a financial advisor a little easier, maybe. Right, but can't really do that till you get out. Right. Okay, so this is really the last slide, but make sure you set your goals, make sure you budget right when you commission, have a budget ready to go, save that 10 to 15%, get an emergency fund established, invest, and then take care of your troops and lead them. And so these are some quotes from some big famous people. What questions you got?
How would you recommend for somebody I need to start budgeting, but I haven't really ever done it.
Yeah.
You may have touched on it before I got here, but like, what is like the first thing you would do, like you would recommend for somebody who wants to start budgeting?
So take this picture right there. I think we talked about this before you got in, but it's got little percentages of where you should be spending your money for like taxes, car expenses, and just try to keep it at those percentages. You know, you can look up how much you're gonna make, put it right here, and look up your housing allowance, and then you can start figuring out these other things. And as I told these guys, the first month, you're gonna probably come up short. You know, you probably spent too much on your first month. Reevaluate, say, okay, where did I spend that extra money, and go from there. So that's probably the best thing. Don't do like the majority of people in my era, just look at your checking account and say, okay, am I even? Should I spend more than I made this month? Have a plan with that budget. And there's a lot of easy ways to do it with software, with apps that, you know, apps that can take your credit cards and automatically download them and your expenses and puts them into different categories. So you can do that. What else?
Rainy day funds, so when saving for those, like you listed a couple of places. Currently, mine is in an index
Index
fund,
fund?
index 500,
Yeah.
which is like, it takes about a week to get out.
Mhm.
And
Well,
there's
so-
some consequences, but
So
I
what
don't need it at that time at the moment, I don't know, is
Yeah.
that,
I would, so your rainy day fund, your emergency fund should be in something, one, you can take out quick. In a couple days.
Yeah.
And it should be something that's pretty low risk.
Mhm.
Stocks are not low risk. Now, I don't know what your index fund is. Maybe it's bonds or,
yeah, it's Charles Schwab 500 index,
okay, but that's probably pretty volatile, isn't it? Like,
not really.
has it been going down lately?
A little bit, but not much.
Okay.
It's been pretty
Well,
solid trend.
generally,
for like 3 years.
stocks are not what we recommend.
Mhm.
You can put a little bit in.
Okay,
But diversify it so that if you do have a true emergency and the stock market just crashed, you can access some money. Because let's say, like, and I had this situation. Let's say you have an emergency or you want to use your money, $30,000 or something. And like I'm at the age I can already access my 401k. So good and bad things. So I could access it, but I don't want to access it now when stocks are down. Because if I wait 10 years, they're going to be way up and I'm screwing myself. So the emergency fund would, in a savings account, and, you know, I wouldn't necessarily put in bonds right now, but what were some of the other bonds, CDs, those sorts,
and then with
money
this,
markets?
yeah, with the savings, you would just like have a whole another savings account.
Yeah.
That's just like
Yeah, so
sitting there, like,
I'll tell you what, I heard this from a financial advisor and then I did it. I got a couple savings accounts. So I got one with one company and one with another company, and the one that I don't access very much, that's my emergency
Okay.
fund. And I just keep putting like $250 a month in that, and I don't even think about it. And it's hard for me to access. I have to go to my other bank and transfer it over to the bank I use all the time. So, but I could always go to the bank and get it the same day if I wanted to.
Okay.
Right. So that's just a trick you could use. But you can put it, you know, several different types of checking accounts, one used for this, one used for saving for vacation. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways to do it.
so in that case, it might be worth opening a bank account at another bank than where I already have.
Good. Or just use the same bank and open another checking account
Okay,
or another savings
Can you
account.
keep just opening?
Yeah, I mean,
it?
I've got,
Sorry,
I
I've
got a
never,
regular savings account. I got what's called performance savings. That's like instead of 1% to 2%. You still take it right out.
okay, and this is through USA. Sorry, just, that's what I have, so
Right.
it's just, that if I can do that.
But I mean, I have another bank too.
Okay.
So there's other, you can do it all at one bank, do it multiple, so different ways. You guys got any questions? You don't have to, so, and I'll stay around. I mean,
Sir, I just have a question regarding real estate. So I know you talked about some of your friends having some horror stories with buying houses, but would you suggest maybe like down the line after your junior officer years to start getting into buying houses, whether that be like a duplex or like using the VA loan in that sense? If you know, you're like you said, you're living there longer.
So I'm not giving out financial advice because I'm not a financial planner, but I would recommend you talk to a financial planner.
Okay,
I will say a VA loan is definitely the way to go. If you're getting real estate, you can only use it once at a time, but it's going to be lower interest rates. And because it's insured by the government, right? That's why it's low. So it's a pretty good deal, and the cost is not as much either. So that answers part of your question, but you know, going to buy a bunch of real estate, I would definitely talk to a financial planner about something like that.
got it. Thanks, sir.
Any other questions out in the field? I'll hang around, but good luck to you guys. I'm envious of your situation. It went way too fast for me. I did 30. And it seems like I was in your shoes just yesterday, really. So have fun out there. Good luck. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you have something for like a financial planner, like the guy on we just talked to, email your instructor. I can ask that question with the financial planner. Actually, I got a card. If you want to write down my email, it's Paul PAUL.McElroy McElroy@USAA.com, and I could forward your question to a financial planner and get you the right answer.
Oh, that'd be great, sir. Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah, he's not gonna tell you, yes, absolutely do that. He's gonna give you different options and why good and bad ideas. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Want Starbucks or? Okay.
Sure, Starbucks, yeah, that'd be great.
Good. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
It's only $5.
That's a coffee.
That's right.
Happy birthday.
Save any order. Anybody know the guys that were on there?
Yes.
Yeah, you want to give them a copy?
We can,
Sounded like Diego.
Yeah, is what Diego's on there.
You might have got two.
It's not Diego, that's what I saw.
Two or three. I give it. Who wants to give it to them?
who was on the call? Anyone in your company?
Not my company, so.
Oh, that's
Is
text.
Diego in your company? Will?
Hmm.
I can give it to Diego. Thank you.
What were the other two?
I don't
The
know.
day.
Oh,
I know
Diego's on
Diego.
there, yeah.
You'll probably-
Yeah.
He's in New York.
Who was the other one?
I don't know.
The
I
day.
don't pay attention.
If you don't have to get back.
Yeah, I'll take him to all my friends. I'll hold on to him.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Next one is, you know, if to open a USAA account, you have to be contracted. Is like, so you have to be contracted, but did you open a USA?
Yeah,
Did you open it just while you were here, or did you
Last
based on
summer.
your parents?
no, it was just me.
Okay, just contracting,
Yeah,
cool,
it's super easy.
because I have mine, but I didn't know if people could do it just on contracting, because I was able to do it anyway.
Yeah, I did it for the career starter.
Okay,